However, with the support of United Way and other partners, there are solutions that are starting to make a difference. Initiatives like Community Properties of Ohio, the largest low-income housing effort of its kind in the nation, is helping low-income residents transition into the working community and break the cycle of poverty. Today, more than 1,000 such units are scattered across Columbus, helping hundreds of families over a 4.5-year period. Smart Start, an early education and child care initiative, set the objective of helping local child care centers and home-based programs achieve accreditation and receive ongoing training. Today, 88 new centers and home-based care providers have met the high-quality accreditation in Columbus. And pertinent to this conversation today, the Circle of Business is a membership group of local companies that are focused on how do you get better home and work balance in your companies and across the community. United Way is working with business leaders throughout the country to support similar collaborative efforts. A few weeks ago, the Aloha United Way in Honolulu was making a case to their Hawaii Chamber of Commerce on early childhood development and the need to advocate with the state legislature. Members of that chamber were so taken by the presentation, several changed their calendar that day, joined the United Way and other partners to go lobby the state legislature because they got it in terms of how it connected to their business interests, whether it was employment or customer base and so forth. You heard about the incredible work in Arizona in terms of getting $150 million of public funding into this work because of private sector, working with the Valley of the Sun United Way, working with public sector leaders. The United Way of Miami-Dade recently worked with business leaders to create the United Way Center for Early Education Excellence, which offers a world-class national best practice educational center for caregivers, business leaders, parents, governments dedicated to raising the quality of early education on both the local and national levels. I toured that facility 30 days ago, and I'd heard a lot about it, and it's an innovative effort in terms of local leaders in South Florida. We toured it with our incoming board chair, Bill Perrett, who's the global CEO at Deloitte. And the idea is, how do you bring policymakers, business leaders to a place that is an early learning center that shows you, if you had this amount of resource in a community, this is what a classroom would look like. Here's how the learning could happen. If you had this amount of resource and it was a higher level, this is what it would look like. Bill Perrett says to me on the way out, you know, we have an interest in the firm of getting more and more of our women principals and partners actively involved in communities. I keep hearing from them that increasingly they have interest in early childhood learning and development opportunities. What would you think about the idea of maybe getting 30 of our top women leaders in Deloitte and come to the center and spend a couple of days together? The point is that, you know, to Charlie's challenge, if we'll think creatively about segments and gathering places, and how do you get voices, and how do you take the interests of business leaders and women leaders and Latino leaders and African American leaders and get it focused, I think we probably have the chance to make even more progress. And finally, Mile High United Way in Denver worked with business leaders to find a way to leverage public-private investments together to drive change. The result yielded more than $10 million in public-private investment to support a new approach for them to improve child care quality. QualiStar Early Learning, a star rating system, helps Colorado parents find quality care and provides incentives to child care providers to continuously improve. And I would say, you know, we're working with now, we're so impressed with the work in Colorado, we're working with Doug Price and others in Denver to bring that rating system across the country, working at United Way of America. And I would say very clearly that, having been in enough of those conversations about rating systems and are they the right thing or not, I'm kind of at a point in our own work that I think if you get most of the work roughly right, and you get the right people around the table with the right intention, and thoughtfully try to improve, whether it's a rating system or something that, you know, a more traditional accreditation process and so forth, we just have to start making some progress. And I think that the thing that I personally am intrigued with the rating systems is that it's so consumer-based, that it's an easy way for us to engage parents, caregivers, others, to say, you know, you have to drive quality. You have to drive it. You know, if we don't get your voice in this, it's going to be hard for us to get public sector leaders and decision makers to make the changes that they're going to have to make. Finally, in conclusion, hopefully, as you can see, we're starting to see some success through partnership and working differently. United Way has a corporate network like few other nonprofits, and this is why, quite honestly, since I knew this number, I could take Charlie's challenge. We've got more than 1 million business leaders already engaged in community change efforts in those 1,300 local United Ways across the U.S. And we're working at a grassroots level to enlist these business leaders as champions for children and families, working from the 3 cornerstones that in our mind drive social change: awareness, education, and then action. Our Born Learning campaign offers tools that help activate business support for early childhood learning. Before I tell you what's in some of your packets, even though you've seen it, it was interesting in terms of integration and collaboration and the difficulty of that. When we launched Born Learning in partnership with Civitas and others, there were a lot of those 350 Success by 6 United Ways who pushed back on it. And what we did in terms of just pushing forward and bringing the Success by 6 folks into it is that this has got to be a bigger idea. You know, it doesn't eliminate Success by 6, but there's got to be education and awareness for caregivers and parents, and there's got to be a fulfillment effort that, you know, pediatricians and center providers and so forth can get access to tools, business leaders. So what you'll find in that packet, among others, are tools like a research-based PowerPoint that offers a consistent, compelling message, tips and guides for directing media attention to early learning, information and promising practices in public policy across the nation, and more. We're building a national group of business champions for children, United Way by United Way, who stand together to help build public will for legislation, programs and budgets that support young children, and especially those from birth to age 3. But you know, it's one of the things that we sometimes get enamored with is the relationship we have with business leaders. What we're now learning in this change toward how do you get real results in community is that it is about business, but it's also about neighborhood leaders. It's about faith leaders. It's about nonprofit leaders. It's about the public sector. And I know Marla was telling me you were having conversation about engaging the candidates in the presidential election, which is spot on. But for us, it's also about county commissioners and the mayors and governor's races and state legislatures and so forth. So we put the same kind of information and awareness building and pressure when it takes that at all levels, because as we all know, if we can build that grassroots effort that is business and beyond, that will put additional pressure on the national candidates. I hope that you'll seek out your local United Way and lend your strength to their efforts. We'll do the same. Successes like the ones I've just described can only be realized together, but they can be realized in all communities. I think what we all have to do, including us at United Way, is be more willing to take a public stand, recruit our colleagues, and work collectively to advocate for the policies that we know will work for kids. Again, the social and economic case for this work, in my mind, has never been more compelling. It's time to have the kind of social movement that permanently changes how our society values and supports early childhood development and that doesn't let anything stand in the way of giving our kids a fair shot. You know, I'm a big believer in that there are opportunities that are like windows. They open and they close. There was a window for us in United Way to make change. If we wouldn't have walked through it, it would have closed. I think there's a window right now in terms of getting the country really focused on what our youngest citizens need. But it's going to close because there'll be another issue that comes along. I think the time is now. I think the players are right. I think you are the core of those right players, and we stand ready to work in partnership with you. Thank you very much.